Welcome to The Growth Equation. This isn't your typical business podcast. We're keeping it real about the challenges of scaling up, period. I'm Tristan Wright and I've been there. I've built and scaled my own business. I've sold it. I've learned a ton along the way. Now I'm bringing you the no BS stories of founders who are in the trenches right now, navigating that messy middle. We're talking advertising, marketing, design, creative, branding, the whole 9 yards. Doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur or running a team of 100. Everyone's got a secret sauce, that thing that makes them different, better. We're going to uncover it. So grab a coffee and let's get real. Today we're talking to Serena Maston of Pulse Marketing. Welcome, Serena.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So we've had multiple conversations and we were having a chat before, but tell me a bit about who you are and your business.
So we are celebrating 11 years in business this year. And we've been through the trenches and we've also grown from all those experiences. So we did at one point have an office with our team members there. And over time, we realized that we can work anywhere. So now we have team members across the US, and it's just been an excruciating and amazing process all at the same time.
Now, most of our listeners are in Australia, and everyone can pick up your accent. So you're definitely you're not Australian based. You mentioned you're US. So, actually you're in Puerto Rico now. So tell us a bit about all of that.
So, when all of my team members started to relocate, and I have team members in Boston, Texas, Florida, and California, and then my kids went to college, I thought, well, if I'm going to move anywhere, I want to move somewhere beautiful. So I actually just moved to Puerto Rico about 3 weeks ago and running the business from here. And it's been amazing.
That's awesome. When you said your team been moving across the country, did that all start through COVID, or were you sort of starting to be remote before then? How did that all come about?
There was so many pieces to that. I was married for 10 years, and my husband, he was, the VP of sales. And so he was responsible for growing the business, and he did incredible at that. But there was a darker side, and for those that work with their spouse, a lot of times there's other things behind the scenes that you have to deal with. And my husband struggled with mental health issues and multiple infidelities. And so our marriage was tumultuous, but our business was growing. And I felt like I was breaking down, and anything in my personal life was now impacting my business. So I had to make a decision to leave my husband in October of 2019. And when COVID hit in 2020, my husband committed suicide. And so through that journey, not just the pandemic, but also through the journey that my team and I were on, we had to find a way to lean out the business, and the office space just wasn't, it just didn't make sense anymore. And so that's when we started working from home, and from there they started traveling. So I got a little jealous and had to join the bandwagon.
Yeah. And how are things now? Obviously you would have had a tough time for a couple of years. So,
Yeah.
and I imagine you were lost in direction for a bit, just floating around.
Oh yeah, I had to basically start the agency over. I mean, we were still running with our clients that we had, but there's a lot of rebuilding that had to happen in order for us to overcome something so big. Because it wasn't just COVID, and COVID was big in itself. It was also the financial burden and, healing my family, healing myself and my staff, because all of us were interwoven in, this traumatic event. And so through that process, my team actually rose up and they carried me, when I was still in my healing process and when I was in my darkest moments. That's why we're still standing as a company. So if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here.
That's amazing. Like having a team that will step up and support you when you need.
Yeah, I can't even. There's not words for the gratitude that I have for them, and I wish so much that I could give them even more than I already do, because it's just such a selfless, act for someone that works for you to sacrifice their own needs to make sure that the company survives, and without them, it would have just been a really dark spiral.
So a lot of companies, like, they're not going to be lucky enough to have a team or staff that will do that or step up like that. So why do you think, looking back retrospectively, your husband's suicide apart, why did your team step up for you for the business?
So I think there's a few things. I think that a lot of times we show up with a mask, like when we're running, as a leader or as a business owner, whatever it may be. And if people feel like you don't need them, then they will jump ship. And in that shift, I decided to be completely authentic and vulnerable with them and ask for help, which is the hardest thing as a leader. And
Mm,
what it did is it empowered them. And so the beautiful thing is that we've already had core values and a deeper connection that we created within our organization to make sure that everyone felt valued. And that came back like tenfold when I needed it most. So I think it
yeah,
starts with creating an environment where people feel safe, where they have a voice, where they feel like there's a bigger purpose. And then I think from there, that's when they give back.
yeah, yeah. It's so it's being an authentic leader, being transparent, and treating everyone with the respect that they deserve.
Yeah, because I think with employees now, I think when I was in corporate America, it was do what I say or you're fired.
I do different now.
They're much different now. And so it's much more of a community where everyone feels like they're a part of something bigger. And I think that's what's, really empowered them to rise
Mm,
up, even when I was struggling. And so during that time when I was healing is when I wrote the book about my story. And that's when a lot of the healing came through. And I realized that as a leader, I was hiding behind a mask that I had it all together, that I got this. And in reality, when you do that, or when you try to pretend that everything is going smoothly, people see right through it. And so
mm,
it's not to say that you have to tell people what's happening in your life, but you do have to say, I need help. Because at the end of the day, that's what allows them to feel like they're giving back.
yeah. I imagine you learnt a lot about yourself and how to operate your business when you were writing that book.
Oh, yeah. And I also learned, it's funny, I always say, you're always better the second time. And even though the business was still running, rebuilding it with the team that I had, it was almost like we could see the gaps. We could
Mm,
see, where we needed improvement, and we had a laser focus. Whereas when we started the business, we were just figuring it out. So
yeah.
I think the second time around, when you're actually rebuilding, it's always a better outcome.
So describe to me, where is your business now? Like, what's it like headcount wise, client type wise, all of that sort of stuff? Where
Yeah.
where are you today?
So at the time, when kind of everything, when the shit hit the fan, that's what I like to say. We had 12 employees and we had a 4,000 square foot office, and we were a little over a million in revenue. Right now, we're 16 members, and we are producing a higher amount of work with better quality, and clients that we actually want to work with, which is another big part of the story, is that when you're just taking anything, you also get everyone's mess. And so we've defined a way to identify who our ideal client is and if they align with our values, and that has helped us tremendously. So we might be, what we say is, we may be small, but we're mighty.
Yeah. So on that journey, what was like going from 12 back down? I think when we spoke, it would have been a couple of years ago. Did you get down to a less than 6 for a period of time? What? Yeah, I think when we spoke, you were like 2 or 3 from last time we spoke. You were,
Yeah.
so on that journey, rebuilding. What would you say was the most challenging or difficult part to break through?
I think the financial piece was the most difficult. You could imagine going from one extreme to the next. But throughout
Yep.
my life, I grew up in witness protection. I grew up, in foster homes. And by the age of 15, I was living on the streets, and I had 3 jobs, and I put myself through high school. So I am not a stranger to having nothing. And what that has done for me is it's made me very resourceful.
Mm.
So the
You
benefit,
need to be that
yeah,
background.
yeah, the benefit of when we went to a place where we were over 1 million and we went down, to 250,000, it was, you just have to be really creative. You have to identify ways to streamline, ways to be more efficient, and still produce the same amount of work. And I think that was the biggest benefit. And now we're back up just under 1 million this year. And that, to me, is such a blessing, because when we last spoke, and I think it was about 300,000 where we
Yeah.
were, and I had 6 people.
Actually, I think from memory, I did a cold outreach email to you, and you needed help getting past that, but you couldn't afford my services from memory.
Yeah.
So like that's a phenomenal turnaround.
Yeah,
From
it's
now.
staying lean and identifying ways to optimize your team without losing your cash flow. And
Yeah.
so that's been huge. And then how do you retain clients? Like, it's creating a longer retention program. It's also implementing new things that might bring in additional income in different ways. So
And
a lot of
that's
creativity.
what you had the opportunity to basically redesign or rebuild your offerings to your clients. So how did you and how are you structuring your agreements with your clients now?
So prior, we were definitely we do everything for everyone, which is a train wreck waiting to happen, because you're not following the process for certain things. Every client's different. You have to modify for everyone. So what we've
Mm.
done is we've streamlined our services into 2 buckets. We have what we call our one-time projects, or our large-scale projects, which is typically like a website. Like, if we're building a website from scratch, that would be a one-time project, and we structure the payment according to the launch dates. So they have a payment up front, and then during the initial phase of getting the approval prior to launching it, and then at the end, once we launch the site.
So
When
what happens if it's delayed?
Oh yeah, so if it's delayed, we still have hours that are allocated to that particular project. So if it's delayed, or if the client goes over those specific hours, it's in our contract to communicate that the scope of work has changed.
So
However,
does
if
it
they just never
payment
finish, right? Like, if they're like, well, we're never going to finish the website, that's why we collect the deposit up front. And in the middle stage before the final
Yeah.
final payment.
Yeah. One thing I say to my clients is, like, on a website project, the payment structure needs to be time-based as opposed to outcome-based, because you can't control when they respond. So, and if they respond slowly, that's going to impact your cash flow. So deposit, first payment, second payment, whatever, is based at 4 weeks, at 6 weeks, not based off a milestone.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. But then the other side of it is diversifying your clients, right? So it's not only getting web clients, because then that would be really challenging to be chasing people down to get final revisions, final approval, and final deposit. So in addition to that, we have a retainer-based program, and that is a certain number of hours per month that we offer to our clients for all marketing projects, not just web. And that way we could track the time that is invested by our team, and scope creep doesn't happen because now we're allocating a certain number of hours each month to that client.
For those retainer packages, do you sell them as hours or outcomes? I know you track them on hours, but do you sell it as?
So we've done both. We've tested both. The hours seem to work in the sales process because it makes it easier for somebody to make a decision. But a lot of times they never ask about the hours again. So unless they're going over their hours, and then that's where we get overage. And the overage hours, so we monitor those hours purposefully, because if we're at 75% of their hours and it's only the second of the month, then we let them know that in order to finish these additional projects, this is the estimated time that we'll need. And just based on the overage hours and collecting that additional income, it's brought in over 100,000 this past year.
Yeah, that's awesome. The only obviously the only issue with that is the only way you can scale is by adding more headcount, as opposed to becoming more efficient, your staff members.
Yeah, which is also why we have diversified programs through the web, and also testing both the different ways of doing the retainer, because you're right, it's all based on the client, because some clients want to know exactly what goes into it every hour. They want to know how many things you can get done within a certain amount of time. And then other clients are like, we just want you to join our team and let's just move forward. So we've customized it a little bit, but we find that most clients are thriving off of the retainer-based hours. And for us, you were getting so much more efficient with so many different variables of technology that it just makes it a lot easier.
Do you have different rates for different staff, or different services that you deliver? Like, for instance, socials, do you have different hourly rate for that compared to a different technology?
So say that again. Maybe I'm not hearing you right.
And you charge by the hour with your retainers. Do you have a different rate for different staff members or different services within those hours?
That is a great question. No, the way that we did it is that we made our hourly rate to cover our basic cost of every team member that would be working on the project, and then we added the percentage.
That's the best way to have predictable revenue, predictable profit. So as long as it's managed properly, that's really good. And it's one of the methods that I teach. And I always say the next step is to change that into output based as opposed to hourly based, because as your team becomes more skilled, a task that previously took them an hour, especially with the advent of AI, you'll be able to do that same task in 15 minutes. And you should be benefiting from that just as much as the client kind of
Client.
thing.
Yeah, I know. It
So
was in our rebuilding stage, we were looking at tracking everything, which has made it a lot easier for us to have a visual pulse on where the company is and where the cash flow is. So,
yes.
but I agree with you, shifting that would allow us to scale a lot faster.
Have you started implementing AI into your business?
Absolutely. It's and a lot of times it's for quality assurance. It's for, checking a lot of the work that we're doing or simplifying it, simplifying the research, for instance. If we're developing a new web page and, there's a specific code that my, developer has to figure out how to make this work, AI typically will give her the answer in, a few minutes versus her trying to do the research and find those answers on her own.
So other than research and QA, like what about actual deliverables? Have you built AI into any of those processes?
Not into our full deliverables because AI is still growing and developing. And we've been testing multiple different platforms, and there's always something a little odd. So we still have to make sure that our work is up to par. But I think eventually it'll get there.
You can't ever expect a final output, but structured correctly, you can get very good drafts that like
Oh, 100%.
so that's where you need to. So for me, it's not about thinking AI is going to replace the entire process. You look at your SOP and it will be one component of the SOP, one
Yeah.
stage of it. And
Yeah.
that stage might save an hour's worth of writing or an hour's worth of analyzing.
Yeah. So we have, I don't know if you've heard of like EOS and like 90IO is what we use to track our rocks and our milestones as a company. And so we have every team member putting in, their own goals and milestones. And this last quarter, we had each of them tasked with finding an AI solution, identifying the cost savings and the time savings, and if that solution was going to be implemented. And so we did an exercise like that. So every team member, depending whether they're a graphic designer, a content writer, or a project manager, had the opportunity to test different tools to see if it would streamline their workflow.
That's awesome. I love it. Like that's the way to do it. So, do you do socials? How much do you play in creating socials?
So we have, I would say, about 25% of our clients, we manage their social media. But
How much is video of that? How much time do you guys put into video editing and for your content creation?
so we've streamlined a lot of that too. So we utilize the video platforms from AI. We also have a lot of fun when we can't find stock footage or stock images, having AI create something for us. And it's been awesome. It saves us so much time in design.
Yeah. Like, for instance, there's a tool called Opus Pro, and it can create you 10 shorts in the space of 3 minutes, fully edited, on brand, everything. And previously, like that might take 5 hours.
Yeah, 4 hours.
Exactly. So my question to you is, are you charging that 4 hours originally, or are you charging the half an hour that takes using AI?
So, that's a good question because we haven't implemented that platform just yet. But overall, we use it within our current process. So a better example for us would be, let's say, images, creating the image. And I love that you asked that because we're only charging for the image, but we use the image in whatever we're creating, right? So if we're creating an email campaign and we needed this specific image that we created with AI, we're only charging for the time it took to get the image and then to create the email. So that might be something that I can look into, because that's a good analysis to see if there's a better way of charging for those.
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if you're undercharging in some areas, because you're starting
Yeah,
to get those time savings, and you're passing the time savings on to your clients, but you're not reaping the
the
benefits of that.
benefits. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that thought.
So, like content creation, video editing, you
Mhm.
need, as long as you're getting you're getting the quality still. So that's why it's, for me, it's about value-based output. Like with AI coming into processes, my argument is that we still need to track our time, all of that,
Mhm.
but we need to be focusing on more moving towards the value that we're providing, as opposed to charging by the hour, because otherwise there is less in my argument is there's less incentive for the team to be cutting edge and at the forefront of technology, because they know that no matter what, it's the hours that they put in. Whereas if it's value based, they have to the team need to be right at the forefront of everything and be providing the best quality product to be competitive.
Yeah, and I think where we've struggled with that pricing model is that we were pouring our hearts too much into it. So my team, and now times have changed because AI is a part of the conversation. But
Mm.
several years ago, when we were doing value-based pricing, we were losing our asses. So
You still have to budget internally
yes,
a cap on hours.
yeah,
So you still have an internal budget of hours, but the goal is to provide that value in less than that cap.
absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I think it's something that we have to revisit because we were so scarred by it before.
Mm.
But now there's just so many tools out there that it's going to make it a lot easier.
Yeah, like if you don't have that internal cap, it won't work.
No,
So
no.
you've got to have the experience to know how many hours it will take with your current team, and then you as a leader, it's your task or your goal to be able to get your team to beat that cap and still provide that quality. So you know that
Yeah,
today you would charge 10 hours for a video, for instance, and that's what with your current skill set. So your goal is to be able to still provide that video in 6 hours. But the client is still being charged for the 10 hours worth, because that's the value.
yeah. I love that. And what about, yeah, so how do you invoice for that? Is it by service then?
Yeah. So now we're getting into the coaching methodology. So
Well, because I'm
um,
just saying that's what we did in the past, and I
yeah,
was like, they felt like we were nickeling and diming them whenever
so the
we
way
asked
I like
service.
the way I like to do it is, and this is where you get a client staying for a longer period of time. It is, you create your annual strategy with the client,
Yeah,
and then you have a quarterly strategy. And of the quarterly strategy, there's items off the menu that they can pick and choose. They can pick a social package off the menu. They can pick a video package off the menu, and they're the things that are delivered. Those modules or those items on the menu. These are the outcomes that are delivered in month 1 or month 2 or month 3. So they know that they're going to get these items off the menu in month 1 and these items off the menu in month 2 and month 3, and then you revisit at the end of the quarter. Is
yeah,
this enough, or would you like more items?
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, before it was we just kept adding items and my staff was doing so much, and that's where we kind of lost that unified, front when it came to who was doing what and what were we charging for.
But
So
this is where it comes
that's
into,
really
yeah,
good.
you don't just have an annual strategy, you need to have a quarterly calibration where you
Yeah,
analyze and then work out based off your annual strategy, what are the areas that you're focusing on? Sort of like you do EOS rocks with your team. What are your 6 rocks? We're calling it 6 rocks because it might be 6 rocks for the customer, and each of those rocks are a menu item.
perfect. Yeah, I love that.
And then the client knows, and they could choose to scale up. They could come in month 2 and say, hey, I've got extra budget. These are the other items that you recommended. Let's just add it in for this month.
Perfect. I love that. I love that approach. It's something that we've talked about in the past, and my team gave me a little bit of pushback, but I think it's another, it's good to bring up the conversation again.
Yeah, for me, where business is heading in this space, that's the best way to do it. Like, you still need to track time, but you need to sell menu-based items on a quarterly basis, tied back to the strategy. So, you've been on a journey rebuilding your business over the last couple of years. Has your focus been purely on that? Have you been able to manage, I don't like this terminology, work-life balance, but how have you managed personal life alongside the business?
I can say that I've been able to create balance in my personal life now that I've made it a priority, way more than I ever have in my entire career. So I really took a step back when all of my world unfolded. I knew that I was deteriorating. I was pouring way too many hours into the business, and I wasn't paying myself through a lot of that time. So I was, holding that, like, myself hostage to the business, and it really was unhealthy. And so shifting that, I have now almost done a 50-50. Like, it's more of like, I'll put myself into my business 60% of the time, but 40% of the time is to really make sure that I am 100%. And so I do a hour and a half walk every morning with the dogs. I sometimes do an afternoon yoga class, and I still get the same amount of work, if not more, done, and I have a better focus. Prior, I would work 12 to 14 hours and I would be exhausted and I would feel like I got nothing done.
It's because you're mentally balanced, and when you're working, you're actually being much more efficient, and you're focusing on what we'll call the bigger rocks.
100%. And I did a lot of inner work, which, came into understanding how your breathing and the right mindset really impact your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system. Because as entrepreneurs, we're always in fight or flight mode. We're making decisions on the seat of our pants. It's a lot. And once I was able to really learn how to manage my breath work and how to manage my mindset and focus on the things that were important to me, it makes work so much easier.
Totally.
And so much more enjoyable.
Because you're more in line with, let's say, what your North Star is, not just business, but at a personal level.
Yeah. So
So
that's been huge.
All right. So if you were to give our listeners one piece of advice on how to manage their journey in scaling, simplifying their business, what would that one piece of advice be?
I would say the biggest thing is to find a sense of community, because as an entrepreneur, we are typically alone. We feel alone. We feel like even the closest people in our lives don't understand us. But to surround yourself with like-minded individuals that are going through the same challenges is a wealth of knowledge. And it's the most, I would say, it's the richest thing that you can give yourself, is a community of entrepreneurs that you can connect with and that you can grow from.
Awesome. On that note, if people want to join your community or reach out to you and build a community, how would they connect with you?
So you can connect with me either through my personal website, which is serenamaston.com, or through my business website, which is pulsemarketingteam.com. You can find me either place, and you can't miss me.
Awesome. Serena, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Cheers. All right. That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into The Growth Equation. If you've enjoyed the show, hit that subscribe button and leave a review. It helps us big time. Catch you next time. And if you want more, head over to evolvetogrow.com.au for show notes and exclusive content.